Hey everybody, I have a very special guest. Alex Dainis is with me and she is a geneticist. Correct?
I am. I'm getting my PhD in genetics at Stanford at the moment.
Ooh, see, so she's a smarty pants and she is here to talk with us about genetics and how they play a role in eating disorders. So let's get started. I've heard from a lot of you that you have wondered, we have that question always, are we predisposed to something? Is it something that happens in our environment? And so I'd asked Alex to do a little bit of research for us to figure it out, because I know from my research that we have an idea of maybe where eating disorders come from. And, since she has all this education backing her up, tell us a little bit about what you found for us.
Yeah, so when I started looking into this, what I found first is that there's a lot of strong evidence to show that eating disorders are heritable. So they can be passed on through families. And so there have been a couple of different studies that have looked at this. One of them looked at hundreds of patients with eating disorders and then looked at their relatives and their family trees. And what they found is that first-degree relatives of patients with eating disorders were far more likely than other strangers and control patients to actually have an eating disorder. So if you have a first-degree relative, so a parent or a sibling or offspring, that has anorexia, you're actually 11 times more likely to have the disorder yourself. If you have a first-degree relative with bulimia, it's 4 times more likely.
So that really tells us that genetics do play a role.
Yes.
When we're talking like nature versus nurture.
Yes.
Nature is there.
Nature is definitely there, yeah. But there are actually some studies that look at exactly that, at the nature versus nurture component. And so they're called twin studies. So if you think about fraternal twins that don't have identical genes, or you think about identical twins that do have identical genes, both of them have had pretty much the same environment starting from conception to adulthood. And so their mother ate the same things during pregnancy, they had the same upbringing, but the one difference between those pairs is in their genetics. So you can look at lots of twins and ask, are twins that are genetically identical more likely to have the same disorders than twins that are genetically non-identical?
Okay.
And so they find that in eating disorders, if one identical twin has an eating disorder, the identical twin is far more likely to have it than in a fraternal pair where they're not genetically identical. So unfortunately, I wanted to be able to come in here and say, I have the gene, we found the gene. And that isn't quite true yet. So there have been a lot of studies looking for this, trying to find which genes exactly are involved in eating disorders. And they haven't found one yet. So there are some traits that we have that are controlled by one gene. So whether or not your earlobes are attached or not attached, or whether or not you find cilantro to be very soapy.
I do.
Yeah. So that's actually controlled by one gene. So that's a variation in one gene that means you think cilantro is soapy and I think it's delicious.
Oh, so does my husband, thinks it's delicious.
Yeah. So that is a trait that's controlled by one gene. But there are lots of other traits, for example, height, that are controlled by small influences of a lot of different genes. And these are a lot harder to find because if it's controlled by one thing, you get a big peak when you're looking for genetic signals. But if a trait is controlled by lots of smaller genes and smaller influences, you have a lot of small peaks and it's very hard to pull them out.
To see which one's actually influencing it?
Yes. So the current theory is that eating disorders are this second type, that they're actually influenced by a lot of variations in many genes, which predispose you to something. So there are lots of variations in many genes, which makes it a lot harder to find. But some of these genes that they found small peaks, maybe peaks, nothing definitive yet, include things like neurotransmitters, so serotonin and dopamine, as well as things like estrogen receptors.
And like women are more predisposed to have eating disorders, we think.
Right. So there's a lot of things out there that are maybe involved, and a lot more research needs to be done to figure out exactly which ones are involved. So there's no definitive answer yet, but we think we have found some things that do predispose people to eating disorders.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for doing all of your wonderful research and finding as much as you can.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. And I hope that you find this interesting. I know that we had hoped, like Alex said, we hoped we could find the gene. But I think the important thing to know is that if someone in your family especially a close relative, struggles with an eating disorder, it's something to be aware of. I think that is part of where the the therapist in me, I guess, comes into play, where I'm like, we should communicate about it.
Yes.
We should start talking about it. If someone in the family struggles about it, it shouldn't be a secret or something that we don't talk about in the open. I think it's important that we all communicate, we understand, because then if someone else is struggling, they're more apt to speak up and get help sooner. And as I always say, getting help sooner is better, because the longer we hide, the harder it is. So thank you again so much. And hopefully we'll have Alex on more, and I will put all of her links below so that you can find her channel, because it's just, I find it fascinating.
Why, thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe. I put out videos twice a week, and I will see you next time. Bye.